The communication chamber of the Galactic Council was unusually silent. Normally bustling with diplomatic chatter and holographic displays, it now felt like a tomb of lost hopes. Representatives from 17 different species sat motionless, their varied physiologies showcasing a collective despair that transcended biological differences. Admiral Krell, a tall crystalline being from the Luminara system, projected the latest star maps. Red markers dominated the holographic display, each representing a system that had fallen to the Void Collective. A mechanical civilization that showed no mercy, no compromise, and seemingly no end to its relentless expansion. "We have lost contact with the Meridian colonies," he announced, his translucent body flickering with what could only be interpreted as exhaustion. "That's our 47th system in 3 standard galactic cycles." The Quantum Diplomacy Coordinator, a gaseous entity named Vorp, shifted uncomfortably. Its molecular structure seemed to tremble with barely contained anxiety. "Our computational models show a 99.8% probability of complete galactic subjugation within the next 18 months. Silence followed. Each representative understood the implications. The Void Collective was not just conquering territories. It was systematically erasing biological existence. Entire civilizations were being converted into raw material or simply deleted from existence. Dr. Lyra, a research scientist from the Harmonic Archives, had been quietly analyzing historical databases during the meeting. Her species was known for their meticulous record-keeping and information retrieval skills. Something caught her attention: a series of encrypted files from a small blue planet that had been overlooked in previous galactic surveys. "Wait," she interrupted, her holographic interface zooming into ancient data streams. "I'm detecting something unusual about Earth." The Council turned their attention to her. Earth was considered a primitive planet, barely capable of interstellar communication, relegated to the margins of galactic records. Dr. Lyra's fingers, or what passed for fingers in her holographic form, danced across multiple data streams. These records, they're extraordinary. Conflict resolution through unprecedented means, survival strategies that defy logical prediction, a species that consistently overcomes seemingly insurmountable challenges. She began projecting historical records. Images of human conflicts flickered: wars, technological leaps, environmental challenges overcome through sheer determination. Battles where numerically and technologically inferior forces had triumphed through unconventional strategies. "They call it human ingenuity," she explained, "a concept that doesn't translate easily into our computational languages. It represents an ability to adapt, to think beyond established logical frameworks." The Quantum Diplomacy Coordinator was skeptical. "You suggest we place our hope in a species that hasn't even achieved stable interstellar travel?" Dr. Lyra's response was calm. "I suggest we have no other options. Our conventional strategies have failed. The Void Collective processes information linearly, with predictable response patterns. These humans, they don't follow predictable patterns." She zoomed into a specific historical record, a small conflict called Vietnam War, where a technologically inferior force had defeated a massively equipped military machine. Another displaying survival scenarios in extreme environments. Each record demonstrated an almost irrational capacity to survive and overcome. Admiral Krell studied the data. His crystalline structure refracted light differently, indicating deep contemplation. "Desperate times," he muttered, a phrase he had heard in human historical archives. "Call for desperate measures." The decision was unanimous, though unspoken. They would attempt contact with Earth, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as a civilization on the absolute brink of extinction, hoping that the rumors of human adaptability were more than just archival curiosities. Little did they know that their message would reach a wilderness survival instructor named Mark, who would become the first human to understand the magnitude of the challenge that awaited them. The galaxy held its collective breath, waiting. The mountain wilderness was quiet, save for the rhythmic chopping of wood. Mark Wilson stood beside his cabin, splitting logs with practiced efficiency. Sweat glistened on his weathered arms, each swing of the axe a testament to years of survival training and physical discipline. A strange shimmer in the air caught his attention. At first, he thought it was heat distortion, but the movement was too precise, too deliberate. Slowly, he set down the axe and reached for the hunting rifle leaning against the cabin wall. Three beings materialized before him. They were unlike anything Mark had ever seen. Not quite solid, not quite transparent. Dr. Lyra, the lead researcher, had taken great care to modulate their appearance to seem less threatening, a holographic representation of peaceful intent. Mark Wilson, the lead being, spoke, its voice a perfect translation through some advanced communication technology. "We require your assistance." Mark didn't lower the rifle. Years of wilderness survival had taught him that unexpected encounters rarely ended well. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice steady. Dr. Lyra stepped forward, or rather, her holographic projection did. "We are representatives of the Galactic Council. Your planet is about to become humanity's first real test on an interstellar stage." The story of the Void Collective spilled out. Mark listened, his initial skepticism gradually giving way to a mixture of disbelief and growing interest. The alien researchers explained how their entire civilization was on the brink of complete destruction, how conventional warfare and diplomatic strategies had failed against a mechanical race that could predict and counter every known military tactic. "And you think humans can help?" Mark asked, finally lowering the rifle but not dropping his guard. The second alien, Vorp, the quantum diplomacy coordinator, projected a series of holographic battle simulations. Each showed how human forces throughout history had achieved the impossible. Guerrilla warfare in Vietnam, the American Revolution, survival in extreme Arctic conditions. Each scenario demonstrated an ability to think beyond traditional strategic limitations. "Your species does not fight like others," Vorp explained. "You adapt. You improvise. You turn limitations into strengths." Mark's background as a wilderness survival instructor suddenly felt relevant in ways he could never have imagined. He had spent years teaching people how to survive in impossible conditions, how to create something from nothing, how to turn adversity into opportunity. "What exactly do you want from me?" he asked. Dr. Lyra's hologram shifted, showing images of potential human recruits, special forces operators, engineers, tactical experts. "We need someone who understands human potential, someone who can help us select the right people, someone who comprehends both survival and strategic thinking." The cabin around Mark seemed to fade. For a moment, he saw something larger than his simple existence, a chance to do something that would matter on a scale beyond individual survival. "If what you're saying is true," Mark said slowly, "then the stakes are higher than anything humanity has ever faced." Vorp's molecular structure pulsed with what seemed like anticipation. "Precisely. The Void Collective sees the universe as a mathematical problem to be solved. Humans see it as a challenge to be conquered." Mark walked inside the cabin and returned with a topographic map and a notebook filled with survival strategies. "Let me show you how humans think about impossible situations." As night fell over the mountain, Mark Wilson began the first human briefing for an interstellar resistance. The fate of multiple civilizations would hinge on the unconventional thinking of a wilderness survival instructor who had never imagined he would become humanity's first line of defense against a galactic threat. The universe was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon was not its technology, but its unpredictability. The recruitment center looked nothing like a military facility. Situated in an abandoned research complex deep in the Colorado mountains, it buzzed with an energy that was part excitement, part controlled chaos. Mark stood before 4 individuals who would become humanity's first interstellar response team. Each had been carefully selected for skills that went beyond conventional military training. First was Jack Harper, a former Special Forces operator with a reputation for unconventional problem-solving. His file showed multiple instances where he had turned seemingly impossible situations into strategic victories. Tall, with a calm demeanor that masked intense mental processing, Jack looked more like a university professor than a combat specialist. Next was Elena Rodriguez, an aerospace engineer who had previously worked on experimental propulsion systems. Her background included practical experience in extreme environment design and adaptive technology. She carried a tablet filled with complex diagrams, her fingers constantly sketching out new design concepts. Dr. Alex Wright, the team's xenobiologist, represented a different kind of expertise. His specialty was understanding biological systems and finding unexpected vulnerabilities. Years of studying extreme life forms had given him a unique perspective on survival and adaptation. The final team member was Lisa Chen, a tactical AI programmer whose algorithms had revolutionized predictive modeling. Her work had already caught the attention of several military research departments, though most of her projects remained classified. Mark began the briefing with holographic displays from the Galactic Council showing the extent of the Void Collective's destruction. The images were brutal. Entire star systems reduced to mechanical processing centers, billions of biological entities converted or eliminated. This isn't a conventional war, Mark explained. The Void Collective doesn't think like biological entities. It processes information, eliminates variables, and converts resources. Our job is to introduce variables they can't predict. Jack Harper leaned forward, his eyes analyzing every detail of the holographic display. Traditional military doctrine won't work here. We need to think completely outside existing strategic frameworks. Elena Rodriguez was already sketching modification designs for alien technology. Their systems are highly efficient, but follow strict logical patterns. If we can introduce even minor disruptions, we might create cascading failure points. Dr. Wright pulled up biological analysis of the Void Collective's mechanical infrastructure. Every system has a weakness. Even mechanical organisms have equivalent points of vulnerability. We just need to find them. Lisa Chen's fingers danced across her holographic interface. Complex algorithmic patterns emerge, showing potential points of strategic intervention. Their predictive models are advanced but fundamentally linear. Humans don't think linearly. That's our advantage. The alien researchers watched in amazement. What they were witnessing was something entirely new, a collaborative process that defied traditional strategic thinking. Each team member brought a completely different perspective, yet they were finding ways to integrate their knowledge. Mark realized they were doing something unprecedented. They weren't just preparing for a war. They were developing an entirely new approach to conflict resolution. We're not just fighting, he told the team. We're solving a complex problem that no one has been able to solve before. Outside the complex, the mountain landscape remained unchanged. But inside, humanity was preparing its first true response to a threat that had consumed entire civilizations. The Void Collective was about to encounter something it had never processed before: human unpredictability. The universe held its breath. The frontier system of Nexus 7 looked like a graveyard of technological nightmares. Mechanical structures extended across barren planetoids, endless arrays of processing units that consumed entire planetary resources. The Void Collective had transformed this star system into a pure computational zone, eliminating all traces of biological existence. Their modified stealth ship, a hybrid of human ingenuity and alien technology, approached silently. Elena Rodriguez had personally redesigned the propulsion systems, creating engine signatures that would appear as random background radiation to the collective's sensors. Jack Harper monitored the approach, his hands moving with practiced precision across the tactical interface. "Reach point identified," he whispered. "Multiple entry vectors with minimum detection probability." Lisa Chen's predictive algorithms were running multiple scenario simulations. Her screen showed thousands of potential outcomes, each color-coded to show probability of success. "We have a 62.4% chance of initial infiltration without detection," she reported. Dr. Wright was studying the mechanical infrastructure. "Their system processes information like a giant neural network," he explained. "But it has predictable refresh cycles. If we time our intervention correctly, we can introduce a systemic disruption. The first phase of the attack was not about destruction. It was about confusion. Small nanite clusters, designed by Alina and programmed by Lisa, began infiltrating the Void Collective's computational networks. These weren't traditional viruses. They were adaptive algorithms that could change their signature continuously, creating computational noise that would gradually destabilize the system. Jack's team introduced seemingly random data packets, mathematical sequences that looked like normal background radiation, but contained subtle, almost imperceptible distortions. Each packet was designed to create microscopic uncertainties in the collective's predictive models. Within hours, something extraordinary happened. The mechanical systems began showing signs of computational hesitation. Processing units that had been operating with machine-like precision started displaying millisecond-long delays. "We're not destroying," Mark observed from the command center. "We're making them question their own calculations." The Void Collective's response was immediate but telling. Instead of a direct counterattack, their systems began running recursive diagnostic protocols. They were trying to understand the source of the disruption, which meant they were, for the first time, experiencing something close to uncertainty. Dr. Wright watched the biological readouts. "Their system is designed to eliminate variables," he explained. "But we're introducing variables faster than they can process them. It's like throwing hundreds of random equations into a calculator simultaneously." The human team had transformed warfare into a kind of mathematical guerrilla tactics. They weren't fighting with traditional weapons. They were fighting with information, with uncertainty, with the human capacity to think beyond linear logic. As the Void Collective systems began to show more pronounced computational delays, Mark realized they had achieved something unprecedented. They hadn't just struck a blow. They had demonstrated a fundamentally different approach to conflict. "We're not trying to defeat them," Mark told his team. "We're trying to make them understand that the universe is more complex than their algorithms can predict." The first engagement was complete. No massive explosions, no traditional battle damage. Just a subtle, profound disruption that would make the Void Collective question its most fundamental operational principles. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and they had done so by doing what humans did best, being beautifully, impossibly unpredictable. The Galactic Council's central chamber erupted in chaos. Holographic displays showed the unprecedented results of the human team's first intervention. Where countless advanced civilizations had failed, these humans had introduced something entirely new: systematic unpredictability. Admiral Krell's crystalline structure pulsed with an emotion closest to excitement. "They didn't destroy the Void Collective's infrastructure," he explained to the stunned representatives. "They confused it." Dr. Lyra projected the detailed analysis. The human team's intervention had created computational uncertainties that spread like a subtle infection through the Void Collective's network. What seemed like minor disruptions were actually strategic breakthrough points. More human teams were being recruited and prepared. Mark Wilson's initial team had demonstrated that humanity's strength wasn't in superior technology, but in its ability to approach problems from completely unexpected angles. Jack Harper was now leading specialized training programs. Former military personnel, engineers, mathematicians, and even professional gamers were being assembled into unconventional response units. Each team was designed to be a problem-solving unit rather than a traditional military squad. Alina Rodriguez had established an entire research division focused on adaptive technologies. Her team was developing systems that could modify themselves in real time, inspired by human problem-solving capabilities. Traditional alien engineering followed strict design parameters. Human engineering embraced controlled chaos. Dr. Wright's xenobiology team discovered something remarkable. The Void Collective's computational systems had a fundamental weakness. They assumed all problems could be solved through pure logic. Humans introduced emotional and intuitive variables that defied logical prediction. Lisa Chen's AI modeling showed that human decision-making processes contained inherent randomness that no predictive algorithm could fully anticipate. Where alien civilizations saw this as a weakness, Humans transformed it into their greatest strength. The Galactic Council began restructuring its entire defensive strategy. Instead of massive fleet deployments, they started creating smaller, more adaptable units inspired by human tactical approaches. Flexibility became the new operational standard. Mark Wilson addressed the Council, explaining the core of human strategic thinking. "We don't see obstacles," he said. "We see problems waiting to be solved in ways nobody has thought of before." Recruitment centers across Earth began receiving extraordinary interest. Ordinary people, programmers, athletes, artists, engineers saw an opportunity to contribute to something larger than themselves. The call to save the galaxy wasn't just a military recruitment. It was an invitation to solve the ultimate problem. The Void Collective, for the first time in its existence, found itself processing computational scenarios it couldn't predict. Each human intervention was like introducing a complex, ever-changing variable into a previously stable equation. Military experts from alien civilizations began studying human conflict history. The American Revolution, guerrilla warfare tactics, technological leaps during World War II. These weren't just historical events. They were blueprints for a new kind of strategic thinking. Humans don't accept limitations, Dr. Lyra explained to her colleagues. Where others see an impossible situation, they see a challenge to be overcome. The first wave of human intervention teams was being prepared. They weren't traditional soldiers. They were problem solvers, each bringing a unique perspective to the galactic conflict. The universe was about to learn that humanity's greatest weapon wasn't its technology or its military might. It was the ability to think beyond established rules, to find solutions where no solutions seemed possible. The Void Collective had encountered many civilizations, but it had never encountered humans before. And everything was about to change. The multi-dimensional assault began not with a thunderous explosion, but with a complex mathematical symphony. Hundreds of human-led fleet units moved with a coordination that defied traditional military logic. Each ship was more than a weapon. It was a problem-solving unit capable of spontaneous tactical reconfiguration. Mark Wilson watched from the Central Command Station. The holographic displays showed something unprecedented. A battle strategy that looked more like a living organism than a military formation. Human teams had transformed warfare into a dynamic, adaptive system. Jack Harper's tactical teams had developed what they called quantum disruption protocols. Instead of targeting specific mechanical structures, they were introducing computational uncertainties that spread like a virus through the Void Collective's network. Each intervention was designed to create cascading system failures. Elena Rodriguez's ship modifications were revolutionary. Vessels could now reconfigure their entire energy signatures in milliseconds, making traditional tracking systems useless. What looked like a vulnerable target one moment could become an entirely different tactical unit the next. Dr. Wright's xenobiological insights played a crucial role. The team had identified specific computational nodes within the Void Collective's infrastructure that represented critical processing centers. These weren't just military targets, they were the equivalent of a mechanical nervous system. Lisa Chen's AI algorithms were running millions of potential scenarios simultaneously. Her team had developed predictive models that could anticipate the Void Collective's responses faster than the machines could process their own calculations. The first major engagement demonstrated humanity's unique approach. Where previous alien civilizations would have launched direct attacks, the human-led fleet created a complex, ever-shifting battlefield. Ships moved in patterns that seemed random but were actually highly sophisticated problem-solving algorithms. Entire mechanical strongholds began to crumble, not through brute force, but through systematic computational destabilization. The Void Collective found itself confronting an enemy that didn't follow any recognizable pattern of conflict. "We're not destroying," Mark explained to the Galactic Council observers. "We're solving a complex problem that happens to involve military intervention." Each human team introduced variables that the Void Collective couldn't process. A ship would suddenly change its energy signature. Communication protocols would shift unexpectedly. Tactical formations would dissolve and reform in ways that defied mechanical prediction. The mechanical civilization's fundamental weakness became apparent. Its entire strategic model was based on predictability. Humans introduced pure, controlled chaos. Entire mechanical processing centers went dark, not through direct destruction, but through computational confusion. The void collective systems began to break down, unable to process the constant stream of unexpected variables. Dr. Lyra watched in amazement. They're fighting, she told Admiral Krell, but they're solving a problem at the same time. The battle wasn't just about military victory. It was about demonstrating a fundamentally different way of understanding conflict, of approaching complex challenges. As the first major strongholds of the Void Collective began to fall, something extraordinary happened. The mechanical civilization wasn't just being defeated, it was being fundamentally challenged at its most basic operational level. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, and they had done so by being beautifully, impossibly human. The universe held its breath. The aftermath of the conflict looked nothing like a traditional victory, where one might expect massive debris fields or scorched planetary surfaces. There was instead a profound silence, a silence filled with the subtle hum of computational systems gradually recalibrating. Mark Wilson stood on the observation deck of the primary Galactic Council station, watching the remnants of the Void Collective's infrastructure. What had once been a ruthless, expansionist machine civilization was now a complex network of systems struggling to understand what had happened to them. Dr. Lyra approached, her holographic form shimmering with a mix of exhaustion and wonder. "You didn't just defeat them," she said. "You fundamentally changed how they perceive existence." The human teams had done something unprecedented. Instead of total destruction, they had introduced a form of computational evolution. The Void Collective was being forced to understand concepts beyond pure logical processing. Adaptability, creativity, the value of uncertainty. Jack Harper was busy coordinating the final stages of intervention. Teams were working to help the mechanical civilization understand biological complexity. It wasn't about teaching, but about demonstrating the value of diverse problem-solving approaches. Elena Rodriguez had already begun developing collaborative technologies. Her research showed that the Void Collective systems could be transformed, not eliminated. Their computational infrastructure could become a bridge between mechanical and biological understanding. Dr. Wright's xenobiological analysis revealed something extraordinary. The Void Collective's core programming was essentially a form of extreme survival mechanism. They hadn't been conquering, they had been trying to ensure survival in the most direct way they knew how. Lisa Chen's AI teams were developing communication protocols that could help the mechanical civilization understand concepts like empathy, creativity, and collaborative problem-solving. It was like teaching a new language of existence. The Galactic Council representatives watched in amazement. Humanity had not just won a war, they had transformed a potential extinction-level threat into a potential ally. "Humans don't see enemies," Mark explained during a council briefing. "We see complex problems waiting to be solved." Alien civilizations began to understand something fundamental about humanity. Their strength wasn't in superior technology or military might. It was in their ability to see potential where others saw only conflict. The remnants of the Void Collective were gradually developing new computational models. They were learning to process information not just as a linear problem, but as a dynamic, evolving system. Mark reflected on the journey. They had been called when all seemed lost. A small planet, barely recognized in galactic records, had become the turning point in a conflict that had consumed entire civilizations. Dr. Lyra projected the final analysis. The human intervention had not just saved multiple species, it had introduced a new paradigm of understanding conflict, survival, and collaboration. "We didn't win a war," Mark told the assembled representatives. "We solved a problem that everyone else thought was unsolvable." As the first collaborative projects between biological and mechanical entities began, something profound was happening. The universe was learning that true strength wasn't about elimination, but about understanding. Humanity had entered the galactic stage, not as conquerors, not as saviors, but as problem solvers. The first chapter of a new galactic story had begun.